Welcome to The Explainer. Off the coast of Brazil, there's this immense source of power that has literally fueled the nation. But right now, beneath the waves, a real conflict is brewing. A choice between the energy that built Brazil's past and a totally new vision that could define its future.
You know, for decades, Brazil's whole energy story has been written in oil. It's a global powerhouse. And get this, a staggering 90% of its production comes from just one place, these offshore platforms way out in the deep Atlantic.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Even with all that oil production, Brazil's overall energy mix is actually one of the cleanest on the planet. Almost half of its power already comes from renewables like hydropower and biofuel from sugarcane.
So that sets up this fascinating question. If Brazil is already such a green leader, why does its future depend so critically on what happens out in the ocean? Let's dive in and really unpack the two powerful, competing visions for its Atlantic coast.
Okay, so to really get what's at stake here, we first have to appreciate the sheer scale of the incumbent power. That's the offshore oil and gas industry that has basically owned these waters for generations. Yeah, this industry is so much more than just energy. It is a massive economic engine. I mean, for over half a century, it's been the backbone, shaping the entire nation, funding development, and driving industrialization. But all that economic power, well, it comes with a pretty steep environmental price tag, and a lot of it is hidden right below the surface. You know, the history here is really punctuated by accidents. What you're seeing is just a snapshot of the major spills. We're talking thousands of cubic meters of oil flooding Guanabara Bay, repeated incidents in the Campos Basin, each one leaving a scar on the marine ecosystem. And you know, the research on this is pretty clear. The impact of these spills goes way beyond the initial headlines. This isn't just a one-and-done cleanup. The contamination can linger, affecting biodiversity and the coastal communities that depend on a healthy ocean for years, sometimes even for decades.
And it's not just an environmental debt either. There is a massive financial bill coming due. Over 64 billion Brazilian reais. That's how much it's estimated to cost just to clean up and decommission the old, inactive platforms that are out there rusting in the ocean. That's a huge ticking liability.
So, when you're looking at those huge costs, both environmental and financial, it's no surprise that a new contender is emerging from the very same waters, offshore wind.
And let's be clear, this isn't just some fantasy. The very same Atlantic that holds all that oil also happens to have these incredibly powerful, consistent winds. It's a vision for an energy future with a totally different environmental footprint.
And when you put them side by side, the contrast is just stark. Instead of spills and contamination, you have the promise of eliminating greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, some studies even suggest the structures can become artificial reefs, which could actually increase local biodiversity.
How about that?
The economic side of things is also really compelling. Just look at the numbers. Studies show offshore wind can create an average of 24 jobs for every megawatt installed. Now compare that to something like natural gas, which creates only 2. It's not even close. Okay, so it sounds great, right? But making this transition, well, it's not as simple as just flipping a switch. There are some huge, complex hurdles to get over before this vision can become a reality. So the first big one is just writing the rules of the game. You know, building a stable regulatory framework, it's a slow, complicated process. We're talking years of bills, decrees, studies. The groundwork is still being laid, and all that creates uncertainty for the big money investments needed to get this off the ground. And then you get past the paperwork, and the physical challenge is just staggering. I mean, think about it. We're talking about creating brand new supply chains for millions of tons of steel, completely overhauling ports to handle these gigantic components, and then training a whole new generation of skilled workers from the ground up.
So, to get over these hurdles, you need relentless innovation, right? Turbines have to get bigger and more powerful to be cost-effective. The foundations need to be able to float in deeper water to catch the best winds. And then you need things like AI and remote monitoring just to manage it all and keep the costs from spiraling.
And all of this brings us right back to that central choice facing Brazil today. It's a choice between doubling down on a powerful but aging legacy or pioneering a completely new path.
And here they are, side by side, two possible futures, both born from the exact same Atlantic waters. One path continues that 20th century story of oil. The other is a leap into a 21st century energy world.
Whichever path is chosen, it's going to lead to a vastly different Brazil.
So the decision here is going to shape not just its own economy and environment for generations to come, but because of Brazil's scale and influence, it's also going to send a really powerful message to the rest of the world about what the future of energy looks like.